Okay, the next thing I want to look at is some ideas that can put expression and feel into your playing. One thing I want to work on is vibrato. I'm just going to pick one note on the G string, namely the 12th fret, and I'm just going to show you like some different types of vibrato that you can use. So here's one where it's kind of like you slide into the note, and then towards the end of the note you're just going to allow for a little bit of vibrato just to kind of keep the note going. So let's see how that sounds. Okay, as you can see, I'm sliding into the 12th fret on the G string, just holding the note and then gradually working in some vibrato. Basically, you kind of want to just shake it a little bit with your left hand, and you're kind of just rocking your hand like that, but holding the note on the string. And also your thumbs at the top of the guitar as well, kind of keeping your hand fairly stable. So your hand sort of looks like that. But the thing is, my thumb's moving, but if you can imagine a guitar neck there, it wouldn't be moving at all. It'd just be sort of all this part of my hand moving with the thumb on the back of the neck. So your thumb's just kind of supporting it. So, you know, that's kind of, you know, a nice slow vibrato. You can also add like a fairly quick vibrato in there as well, which can sound like this. Okay, so the vibrato is slightly wider, but what you want to do is try and keep the same note that you're aiming for, instead of kind of bending the note out of pitch and then adding vibrato to that, because I've seen quite a lot of people do that. But, you know, what you need to do is just kind of like shake the note around where you're trying to pitch. But as long as you let the note kind of go back to its original tension, you know, on the string, then you're gonna end up with the same pitch that you started out with. You're just adding a bit more kind of musicality to it. Also with vibrato as well, it's worth doing on different fingers. So you might want to kind of try and use your second finger to slide into that note instead of your first finger. And then a bit quicker vibrato. And then again, you can use your third finger as well with some slow vibrato. And then a bit quicker. Now, your third finger is probably, you know, maybe the strongest out of those three fingers. It certainly is on my left hand. And you tend to find that if you land on a note using the third finger, you can probably get a lot more kind of aggressiveness out of the vibrato. So let me try that. Again, you're still kind of bending the string quite far away from the note, but as long as you let it back down to the note, you know, each time you're bending it, then you should be fine with the pitch aspect of it. You know, so you can kind of, you know, experiment, that's all I would say. You know, try and do it kind of, you know, nicely as if you were playing like a ballad or something, and then kind of, you know, ramp up the aggression as you get a bit more confident with it. You know, it's definitely something to work on. It's definitely easier doing it to notes where you're not bending the string, you know, so like you're bending up to another note, which is going to be the next thing that we're going to look at. I'm going to bend up the 15th fret on the B string a whole step, up to the pitch of 17 basically, and then I'm going to apply the same sorts of principles to that. So you're going to bend that note and then add a little bit of vibrato, and then, you know, there's varying degrees of vibrato depending on the sort of expression that you're going for. So you know, let me just bend up the 15th note on the B string, and then I'll demonstrate with a few different ideas for vibrato. Okay, so again, going from, you know, starting off with slight vibrato and then ending up with quite an aggressive vibrato. But, you know, when bending, it's harder to keep the pitch of the note, because obviously you haven't got the tension of the string bringing it back to the note that you started on. When you're bending the string, you've got to hold that note, and then you've got a kind of vibrato around it as well. So it definitely takes a bit more control. But, you know, if you kind of not sure of the pitch that you're supposed to be aiming for, you can just play 2 frets up. So you just play the pitch of the 17th fret and then bend the note up. Okay, another cool thing you can do on bends as well is if you bend up the note and you find that the G string is slipped under your third finger as well, then you can shake a bit more aggressiveness out of the note, because then when the G string comes in, it adds a bit more graveliness to it. Like that. So eventually when you get towards the end of the note, that kind of G string slips in a bit more and you can get a bit more kind of, you know, rockiness out of it. So, you know, that can sound pretty cool, you know, when it's called for. Okay, something else that you can do as well is you can basically bar your third finger, or whichever finger you're using, but for the case of this example, I'm going to be using my third finger, on the 14th fret on the G string and the 14th fret on the B string, and just bar across those two strings and then play them simultaneously, and then use vibrato as well, so that can sound pretty cool. You know, after you've picked it and you know, you let the notes ring a little bit, they kind of bleed into each other, so that can sound quite cool as well. Okay, you can also practice this with other fingers as well. So if we bar across the 12th fret this time on the G and the B string, then use our first finger. Then you can sort of like alternate between the two to get used to this technique. A good example of that actually would be to check out a Guns N' Roses song called You Could Be Mine, and basically the kind of lead line in the beginning of that song revolves around that sort of technique, and that lick kind of goes like this. So again, that's kind of putting the lick into context, so you can, you know, if you're not quite sure, I've never heard that kind of sound before, then you can, you know, go and check out that song, you know, as a reference point. Then you can, you know, definitely hear what I mean. But, you know, it's not a complicated technique, it's just something that sounds really cool. And, you know, if you're kind of going for aggressive, but you don't really want to kind of shred, you know, these are the sorts of things that you can do. Okay, another variation of that, I'm going to be on the 14th fret on the G string this time, is that I'm going to bend up the G string on the 14th fret whole step. So we're actually going to be playing the pitch of 16 on the G. And with my little finger, I'm going to play 15 on the B string and just kind of hold that note while I'm bending up the 14th fret on the G. And you can start out by playing those two notes together. Then what you can do is you can gradually bend up your third finger, and the kind of notes, you know, sort of separate, but it creates a different sound. Again, when you get that 14th fret up to the pitch, you know, you can add a bit of vibrato, so you can kind of, you know, gradually work it in, or you can, you know, be as aggressive as you like. It really depends on the sort of thing that you're playing and the kind of sound that you're after. Okay, then you can sort of do combinations between the two. You can do that kind of technique, then you can go to the barring technique. Then you can go to single notes, and then you can add in vibrato as well. You know, it's a good way of kind of building solo ideas that you can use. Okay, so, you know, taking all those licks into account, you know, just try basically playing them, you know, one after the other and kind of joining them up. A good way to do that would be to play over the backing track on this DVD and sort of, you know, work in some bending and some phrasing, because sometimes with a lot of shredding in rock and metal, that can sometimes get overlooked, and, you know, that's just as important, creating, you know, melody as well as, you know, impressive technique as well. So I definitely recommend practicing this type of thing as well.